Bonjour à tous. C'est la dernière des c'est le
Hello
dernier
to everyone. This is the last of our rendezvous
depuis le début du festival.
that we have been having since the beginning of the festival. Matt Damon, Isabelle Huppert, Jodie Foster, Marco Bellocchio, and Steve Mcqueen today. In a few seconds, there is already some melancholy because it is the end of the festival. It has been a festival full of success, especially in the difficult times that we are going through. And this festival is successful thanks to the journalists, thanks to you, thanks to your presence. I am extremely happy today to welcome Steve Mcqueen. He should have been here last year after his first films. Last year was, well, the first film was Hunger, and he won the Camera d'Or in 2008, and then Shame came, and other films also. And last year, he had a series of films that are all feature films. We saw two of them, and we took both. And if Cannes had taken place last year, both films would have been in competition. This was an extraordinary project that shows that he's an extremely dynamic and talented director, and he was invited this year. We screened Lovers Rock yesterday on the beach, and he accepted this rendezvous. He was not quite sure that he could be available or that he had to speak in public, but he does not speak often. He's not very often in festivals, so we're very happy that he accepted to be here. And now we have to be the moderator, the correspondent of the film, the Cannes Film Festival in Los Angeles, Didier Alouche.
Pas mal, vos applaudissements.
Your applause is not bad.
Non, parce que là, ça fait pas spontané, évidemment. Par contre, les applaudissements.
But now you can applaud Steve Mcqueen.
Seront ceux que moi-même je vais faire pour moi joindre à vous, lui faire une très magnifique.
Let's welcome one of the great authors of today's cinema. We are all very happy to have him with us, and welcome to Steve Mcqueen.
Oui, il vient de me dire à l'oreille, parce que quand on avait montré Hunger, et il gagne la Caméra d'Or, et on est tous les deux en scène.
We screened Hunger with the Camera d'Or, and he told me at the time, competition next time.
Et là, face à votre ovation, il vient de me dire.
And he just said, competition next time.
Voilà, merci en tout cas d'être là. Travaillez
Thank
bien,
you for
merci.
being here.
Juste un petit mot pour vous dire que le rendez-vous sera complètement en anglais.
So we will speak in English, so if you need headphones, please go ahead and take them.
Ça va, monsieur?
Ça va bien, merci.
Okay, we're going to start in a second to talk, and I'm going to start questioning you in a second. But I just want to come back to the screening yesterday. It was very special, this screening of Lovers Rock on the beach. What was, just very simply, what was you feeling when you saw all this. Did you like the film? I think they did.
I was feeling great. I mean, I think I was worried about the sound, but I think what was interesting for me was it was almost like a concert. It was the film, in a way. Yes, it was made and presented for the first time on television and streaming platforms with the BBC and Amazon. But for me, it was all about putting it out there on the cinema and getting that situation where the barrier of the cinema screen and the audience were blurred, that you were involved in the party, you were there, and you could feel the emotion, what was going on. So that experience yesterday was fantastic. And of course, the bass. It's all about the bass.
All right. I'm very happy to moderate this rendezvous because I always like to talk about with filmmakers I admire, and Monsieur, you're one of them. But also because I was there in 2008 when Bruno Dumont gave you the Caméra d'Or at the time, and he said something, I couldn't find the exact words, but he said something that kind of stuck with me, and he said, I'm paraphrasing, the narration of Hunger is a perfect balance between the form and the struggle. And it's constant in your work. I mean, narration comes from that, the form of the image, the form of the film itself, and the struggle of the story, of the subject, of it could be political, it could be social, it could be racial, it could be a struggle against addiction, but it's still in the middle of your cinema, and it's a constant. There's not a lot of filmmaker who has this constant in their work. Whatever the movies they make, it's still here. First of all, do you agree? Please say yes. And second of all, how do you manage to keep this balance?
Well, I think in all of life, be it sort of, I don't know, whatever struggle one's going through, even sort of to be in love is a constant, because you've got to constantly sort of keep it going. You've got to constantly sort of work on it, whatever it is. May it be pleasant or unpleasant situation one finds themselves in. It's about the work. And as a filmmaker, one wants to sort of look at it and in some ways try to sort of have an idea on what it can be, but actually at the same time what it is, and how we could get to that point where it can be that thing what we want it to be. If it's, you know, struggling with sex addiction or sort of, you know, getting out of the clutches of slavery, or falling in love in Lovers Rock. It's all there's all kinds of obstacles and all kind of obstacles and barriers that one has to sort of navigate to get to the end goal. So as a filmmaker, you want to follow that, and hopefully that person sort of gets to the end.
It's not easy to follow that through project to project. I mean, it's not that. Does it come to you naturally? It's life.
you know, getting up in the morning. I mean, everything is an effort. I mean, you know, gravity. I mean, it's sort of everything is an effort. You know, getting up in the morning. Gravity is sort of, you know, wanting to push you down. Everything. So, it's not just about the obvious. It's about the ritual of life. How you get, you know, up in the morning. How you brush your teeth. How you sort of get to work. It's that. It's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be sort of so monumental as a subject.
We'll talk about the theme later, but I want to talk about the form itself. You're a formalist. You're an artist. I mean, if some of you, I see some very young faces. If you haven't seen his work as an artist, it's on the internet. It's absolutely beautiful. You came to movies kind of late. I mean, you were 36 when you did Hunger. Something like that.
38. 38. Yeah.
So let's talk about something that I find absolutely amazing in your films. It's a shot composition. I mean, the form is always prominent. Symmetry is essential. The lines are very present. Whatever you want to express, you express already through the image we see, and maybe more than other. Can you talk about your approach of every shot composition and how does it serve the purpose?
Well, I think as an artist, you always look. You're always looking. Since I was a child, and you know, since you pick up a crayon and draw on a piece of paper, you're always dealing with perspective, composition. So, and the fact that I was interested in art makes my focus and concentration more so. So again, looking at sort of images and how how you put it into a composition has always been my fascination, because also what I love the idea of how much story can you tell in one image. I mean, you know, obviously I love painting, so therefore you look at it, I mean, the thing about painting, you can live with a painting, one painting all your life, you know, and go back to it and be fascinated with it every time. It always gives you something new, a new perspective on it. So as a filmmaker, you know, it's interesting how, as a storyteller and as a filmmaker, how much you could overlay in one image, how much you can overlay in one scene. I love the fact that you could talk about 3 or 4 things in one scene, because because you know the audiences can read that as well, and it's much more stimulating when you're looking at something. It keeps you on your toes, and you reward your audience with their intelligence looking at the image.
I remember the first shot of Hunger, the first scene of Hunger, when they clap with I don't know if it's a trash can.
Yes.
I remember that I knew from the beginning that I was watching one of the most powerful scenes that I will ever see in my life. Did you realize, you know the power of images before, through your heart and through your work as a video artist too, but did you realize that cinema was going to give it another dimension to the power of this image, the power of this of what you mean in every shot?
Another dimension. I thought, I mean, when I was thinking of that, I was thinking of the Battle of Algiers and the women who were sort of hollering at the end. Because, you know, what happened, that beginning of that scene is about when Bobby Sands, people find out when Bobby Sands has died. And what happens, so the beginning is the end, and the end is the beginning as such. So it's, in some ways it can actually be continuous projection. And it was about women used to go out in the streets, take the dustpan lids on and rattle them on the floor. And I remember that, and I was sort of aligning that to the Battle of Algiers, when people are liberated and the women sort of start to do the thing, the thing with their voices. It had to be, what I wanted that film to start with was an alarm bell. Wake the fuck up.
It works. The pacing of your film is always, the rhythm of your film, it's very different, because it's very strange, because there's not a lot of cut. You don't overcut your film, but the pace is really, really strong. I mean, let me take 2 examples. Hunger, the scene with the priest, which is incredible. I mean, we feel that this scene is going so fast, so fast, so fast. There's 2 cuts. One is a wide shot with the priest and Bobby, and the other is a cut on Bobby when he does his monologue. Mm-hmm. But we feel this rhythm. It's unbelievably fast. I mean, there's a word, there's the dialogues, there's something else. The other example I want to take is Lover Rocks. Just one of the dance scene, anyone you want. You trust your camera, you trust your actors, you trust the music to give us the sense of pacing, the rhythm that you want to give to the film. Just very simple. So how do you approach the sense of rhythm in your cinema?
Well, those 2 examples are more like, and there are obviously other examples in Shame and 12 Years a Slave and others, which are the tightrope ropes. That, you're walking on a tightrope. Because at any moment, of course, that person could come off. At any moment, that person could sort of could fall. And that tension, that's what you want in specific scenes. That's what you want from the audience, because you want to hold them in that moment. Because as soon as you cut, you allow them to breathe. You allow the release. It's almost like, you know, changing gears in a car. You don't want to change gears. You want to, you want to keep people on the edge of the chair, on the edge of their seat. And it's about those kind of moments. And actually, the moment is when to cut. Is the most important thing in that scenario.
You work with the actors. I mean, what you do is I had doubts when I knew you work as an artist. I had doubts because working with an actor is something totally different. Did you have any doubts when you started Hunger when you had to work with the actors themselves?
No, because I love actors. I love them. So that's not, again, I love collaborating, so that's not an issue. It's very important to sort of have those kind of things where you could actually cajole, support and help actors to get to that moment, that possibility in them. And you know what's interesting for me working with actors, what I want to get to a point with them where they become a sphere. And what I mean by that is that they become this a sphere, a ball, you know. So whatever they do and however they do it is right. You know, to get to that moment where it's not sort of directed, but it's more felt that they can trust themselves to do what they want because they become the character. And whatever they do, however they do it, it's great because then they become the character to help them to become this sphere. That's what it's about.
And you trust them completely. I mean, Fassbender is a great actor, but he hasn't been better than in Shame or Hunger. Carey Mulligan, Viola Davis in Widows. You gave them something. You gave them something different. When they talk about you, I talked with Viola Davis on Widows. She was like ecstatic about you and said some beautiful things about you. And how would you define this? The way you ask them to do what they do. It's pretty strong. It's pretty difficult sometimes.
I think it's honesty. I think they're actors, and what I mean by that, they're actors. What I mean by that is that they want to give, but who do they want to give to? Who do they want to give things to? So I have to be the person that they want to give what they have to. I have to be the one that they trust that they could actually unclutch, as it were, and to open up. So that's my job. You know, hopefully they could trust me to do that.
The themes now. We talked about the struggle, the fights, and I said that there were all kinds of them in your work. Very simple and very complicated question at the same time. Why?
Why? Why? I think. Well,
sorry.
No. It's a good question. It's about liberty, isn't it? It's about freedom. It's about the things that we want to become, the things we want and we need to become, or at least want to and need to think about that we can become. You know, if you sit still, nothing happens. If you move, something happens. So for me, it's all about keep moving. And movies are wonderful things to do that in because, you know, the film goes through the camera or whatever digital camera you get, but it's necessary. It's the only thing I can do, really. And I think that it's all about a search for liberty, a search for some kind of understanding, but all at the same time, you know, dealing with the difficulties. You know, that's what it is. And actually not be blinkered. Open your eyes and look at it, because sometimes it's ugly. It ain't particularly pleasant, but we have to look at it in order for us to sort of understand it to go forward. That's how it is. So, you know, I don't make Disney. You know, that's it. I'm not interested, because it's one of those things where, you know, it's how the world is rather than how people want the world to be. That's the difference, and that's the difference between, you know, filmmakers and movie makers, or content and art. You know,
I would love
you decide.
Then again, I would love to see your version of the Avengers. Anyway.
They all die.
You're a very political person, artist at least. Started with Hunger, started in your work before. But then again, it's really strange because you're kind of very well appreciated by the institution. I mean, you're a knight. You make movies in England without too much trouble to finance them. Now, didn't they realize that you were probably one of the most rebel cineast filmmakers there is?
I did my best to fail. I made a movie about sex addiction. I made a movie about a hunger striker. I made a movie about slavery. You know, a women heist team. So I did my best to fail, but I don't know. I mean, that's great in some ways because, you know, people are interested. People are actually interested. So, you know, again, if there's sort of budding filmmakers out there, I feel that, you know, people often don't realize that people are interested. I mean, when I wanted to make 12 Years a Slave, I mean, I had people in my own so-called team who said to me, "You're impossible movie." Oh yeah, it was not. You know, you got to think about life before 12 years. I mean, there was the whole idea of making a movie about the subject of slavery was not very heard of. I mean, there was a movie before that came out, was Django, which was a Western. So therefore, the whole idea of making a movie with, I mean, the problem they thought was a problem with black antagonists as leads wouldn't make any money internationally. And it would hardly make any money, in the States. And they were entirely wrong. So it's about what you don't know, apparently, rather than what people think they know. So that's what it is. People have to see things which, you have to present things to people, and therefore they might have the idea that they want to go to the movies and see it. Not that people sort of take it away from you even before you actually think about making it. So whatever idea you have, go for it. I mean, it's all there for the taking.
What you say about movies with black protagonists not making any movie abroad. I got this discussion with Lee Daniels about that, and he said that he couldn't finance a movie because of that. And it's BS. Sorry about that, but they're making tons of money outside. I mean, outside of the U.S. border. I mean, how do you react to that? How do you react when you get this kind of reaction?
Well, I'm going to be honest. It changed a lot because of 12 Years a Slave, because it made money. It made, in America, $160 million. Outside of America, $160 million, and $58 million in America. So when that happened, that's when a lot of projects got greenlit, which couldn't get greenlit before, because this movie about slavery, my goodness, black protagonist, my goodness, made $200 million or more. And in the DVD sales, we sold, what did we sell? A quota for the year we sold in 1 week. So that's when people thought, okay, there's money. It's all about money. That's all it is, money. And if it makes money, they go for it. That's why we got all these other movies like Selma and other movies like that. That's what they got made.
It's all about money, but you're right. 12 years changed a lot of things in cinema and slavery, cinema and black directors and black themes. In America, do you realize that? I'm not talking about money now. I'm talking about how it opened new voices and how it's kind of allows filmmaker to show some project. Do you feel that there was something?
I don't think it opened up new voices. It just opened the possibilities that people get their films made because it made money. That was it. These voices were always there, but it was very difficult. For example, like I said, Selma or Moonlight to get made. Because they were the same producers as 12 Years. These movies couldn't get financed. And then when 12 Years made money, then they could get financed. That was it, really. People needed to know that movies with black protagonists could make money. And that was it.
That's the thing. I remember I was in Toronto when the movie was shown, and everybody was like, wow. We were like amazed at, first of all, the film is fantastic. I think we all agree on that. But it was made, and it was so difficult, and you had to go through a Plan B production and get help from actors and talents and stuff like that to get it made. How difficult was it to make this movie? You called it the impossible one.
It wasn't difficult at all. No, I mean, I wanted to make it, and then Plan B got involved, and we did. I think there was kind of. I think the reason why it got made was because Obama was the president at that time. So there was a will to sort of make something like this, and then okay, let's make it. But then when it made money, that's when they got to be like, oh my goodness. So that was the double take. Yeah.
When you talk about racism in 12 Years a Slave or in Small Axe, it's very different, but it's always there. It's always in a very human perspective. How would you say that you approach the question of racism in your film?
Excuse me?
The question of racism in your film.
I don't understand the question.
How do you, when you talk about the racism in your film, whether it's 12 Years a Slave or the Small Axe movie, it's always on a human perspective, and it's always, you talk about the victims, you talk about the political aspect also, but there's always it's always centered on the character. Do you first agree on that? Not at all. Thank you so much.
No, it's a very. I mean, the reason why I made, for example, Small Axe is I wanted to sort of investigate stories which I heard about and knew about, but needed to come out into the light. And, you know, there were some amazing stories like Mangrove, like Lovers Rock, like Red, White and Blue, which needed to be spoken about, needed to be told, and given some kind of sort of platform, because these stories they're not relics of the past. What I was doing was not blowing the smoke off these relics and bringing to the present. What I was doing is saying, look, these are what's happening now. I mean, you know, Leroy Logan, the police officer in Red, White and Blue, you know, that's, you know, you can see what happened to John Boyega with Star Wars. I mean, both of these guys were poster boys of these corporations. And both of them had the carpet pulled underneath their feet. You know, so it's about, you know, what's happening now. So I'm not so interested in, you know, I suppose what I'm interested in is the journey that people take and how they can relate to the past and bring it into the present. That's all.
Spike Lee is the president of the jury in Cannes. But unless I'm wrong, I don't think there has been a Palme d'Or directed by a black director. You won the Oscar for 12 Years a Slave, but there's still no black director who won the Oscar for Best Director. Where are we now? What makes that? I mean, cinema, is there an evolution on that? Is Hollywood still the same? Is the industry still the same? How do you see that as an artist and as a professional?
Well, I don't really care about that. I think I don't really care at all, because what's happening is that films now are equated to awards. Awards now are equated to film. So what happened to film? You know, what happened to just films? You know, who's on the jury, who's not on the jury, who's picking films, who's not picking films. That you know, you don't have any control about. Well, what you do have control about, as much as you can have control about, is to try and make a movie that you want to make. That's it. You know, when I made 12 Years a Slave, I wasn't thinking about that. I was trying to just make this movie. That's all. So I have no interest or power in that. You know, if it happens, it happens. It doesn't happen, who gives a shit? I mean, literally. I mean.
The movie you make are what I call the middle movie, the auteur movie, and in the industry, it's more and more difficult to show this movie, to have them distributed on the big screen. Each and any of the small acts movie deserved distribution in theaters, that's for sure. What's your take on the way the industry is going? Is it okay for you to make movie even if it's for streamers, even if it's not going to be released in theater, or is it an important question for you where the movie is seen?
Listen, you know, again, like many people here, the first time I saw certain movies, which are my favorite movies, I saw them on television. But the fact of going into a cinema and watching on the big screen, there's nothing like it. The sound, the fact that the screen is bigger than you, the fact that you could get the sort of oohs and ahs from the audience, the sort of reaction, you feel the sort of chemistry in the room, and there's nothing like it. So I prefer to see something which is made for the first time in the cinema, because that's the creme of the creme. And again, it's like I was having a conversation with Terry the other day. You know, it's like sort of seeing, you know, a painting in real life in a museum and seeing the reproduction in a magazine. You know, seeing the painting is so much more powerful. It just is. I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah.
No, kind of does, absolutely. It's not really a question. When I saw the scene in 12 Years a Slave with the hanging and the dogs on the other on the same shot, and how you play that, it would not have been that powerful on the television. It has to be on the big screen.
No, it would have been too small. Yeah, on your phone. Could you imagine, please? Oh my God.
Is it important for you to be in festivals, like to meet the audience, how was that important for you?
Very important. I remember my first time in Cannes in 2008. Oh my God, it was magical. I saw people, come into fist fights about film. I thought, oh my God, this is passion. This is real. This is live or die in cinema, and people from all around the world, and it was just incredible. And that screening in Cannes for Hunger for the first time was oh my God, it was just incredible. And the spontaneous standing ovation. And, you know, again, I rib Terry about it all the time because it was, he was getting a lot of flack for it, actually. It was hilarious. And Michael Fassbender, you know, first time on screen, people seeing him, it was tremendous. It was really, I mean, the problem is about that, you'll never get it back. It was the best time ever, and I can't repeat it. That's it. It's the best we'll ever get. Yeah.
I'm going to open the floor to questioning, but before that, I want to ask you something. Spike Lee, again, what's your take on the cinema as the president of the jury this year?
Oh, great. I mean, Do the Right Thing is an absolute masterpiece. It is. It's. I mean, yeah. I remember seeing that film for the first time and just sat in my cinema chair for a little while after, coming out into the light and just thinking, wow. That's cinema. That's how it can affect you. That's how it can sort of have real effect. Yeah, so yeah, he's amazing.
All right, do you have a question? Who has a mic? Over there? Let's start at the end of the room over there. Last row.
Hello. Something I'm very transfixed with in your work very often is your usage of ambiguity throughout. I mean, going back to your very first short with Bear, which I think it allows for the audience to very much embed their thoughts into it. And I think even with Lover's Rock, I think with the character of Bami, who commits this really horrible action, and really bravely you allow him to just sort of slip back into the atmosphere and allow the audience to read into that moment. And I think that has so much powerful commentary in that because of its ambiguity. So I was wondering, is ambiguity in cinema for you natural and instinctual, or is it something that you think about very intently and think through whenever you deploy it?
I think it's about morality, it's about life, it's about what is morality, and about how one portrays that, and how, you know, cinema has from, you know, again, it's good guys and bad guys, you know, good women, bad women, you know, it's sort of, it's not often the reality that I know, you know, sometimes the bad guys win, you know, but also it's how we, you say brave, and it's one of those things where, and people picked me up on that. They said, "Oh, how did you, this Bami guy in Lover's Rock who sexually assaults this girl, this woman, and he's allowed back into the party, and nothing actually happens to him afterwards." Well, that's just life. Again, you know, that party. What's interesting about that party was that, you know, that party was a place where black people could organize something for them, for themselves, because often the clubs at that time wouldn't allow black people in them, or there was a quota of 1 or 2 people. So black people at that time in the UK said, we'll make our own parties, we make our own clubs in their own houses. So that party was being circumnavigated by sharks and alligators, being the police and the wider racist authorities. But of course, even within that party, there are leaks. And one of the leaks was Bami. So, but that's part of who we are as human beings, and it would be a betrayal for me not to show that. Absolutely. And that's what I mean by sometimes things aren't particularly pretty, but they're about us.
Oh, the lady in the middle row here.
Hi, my name is Jeanette Espadal.
Hi.
I'm very curious in the process you have working with actors, both in the pre-production but also on set. Do you, I know every actor is different, but do you have a certain method or leave them in a bubble with you, or do you give them a lot of space? Anything you can share?
Well, I think the most important thing within actors is choosing them before. That's one of the most important things, and then getting to know them. And having the conversation with them, and then about the script, about the character, and then of course there's rehearsals. So rehearsals is an interesting thing, because often if the plane is leaving the tarmac and taking off in rehearsal, I say, stop, don't go there. I don't want to see it. So it's like, it's one of those things where you have to be careful with that, because certain actors peak early, other actors peak late. So how do you juggle that? When you're doing a scene, how do you negotiate that? And that's the hardest thing, to be honest with you. And how do you, if an actor's going to sort of pitter out after a while because he or she is giving the best take then, and this one was going to come later, it's how do you balance that, and who do you choose to shoot first and whatnot, and also the atmosphere. That is one of those things where it's just conversations and investigations. And what I mean, the biggest thing about this is, about actors, is that they are Olympic athletes. And what I mean by that, they have been training, say, for 4 years for the 100 meters. Yeah. So when that gun goes, they're often ready. So it's all about, I think, just sort of helping them to become that person that they want to be, but also helping them to go beyond that, because often they don't even know themselves. I'm speaking gobbledygook a little bit, just because it's kind of difficult to sort of sometimes get into people's brains as far as what an actor is. But it's most of all about trust. And if they feel they could trust you, then that's it. But it's building up that trust. If any directors out there, it's about being honest. And often I get the impression that a lot of directors aren't, for some reason or the other, try to play games. And I think it's always good to be honest.
To elaborate on that, you said that the most important is to choose the actor. How do you know you got the right one? Like this? Is it the encounter, the meeting, the casting process, or how do you know that is the one? After that, you
That's
start.
a very no. You're going to use it. There's something else other than I can't explain that. Unfortunately, articulate that. It's the nose, and often is the case. It's not the person you think it would be. Again, I remember being told about who is it? This person, forgive me, that she is difficult or whatever. Fast and Furious, I can't remember her name for some reason.
Which one?
Michelle Rodriguez. She's difficult and this and that. So, and one of the next tips I'll tell you is don't listen to anyone. Always find out yourself. People talk a lot of shit. Go find out yourself. And she was absolutely incredible. And she's an amazing actress, but she needs to get more interesting roles. She's amazing, yeah.
I know, she's a lovely lady, I do agree.
Fantastic.
We have a question on third row, the gentleman with a jacket. Just stand up and... Right here.
I can talk.
Yeah, please.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us first. I could be so much to speak with you and everything. Apologize in advance, it's kind of weighty.
Here we go. You got the mic.
There you go. Just want to say thank you for sharing your time. I'm really curious because you've made in your career so many, and I apologize again if this is a weighty question, but you made so many films that speak so honestly and tremendously to Black experiences around the world. And with both 12 Years a Slave and Widows, which I think is underrated. I think it's a total masterpiece. But I myself am descended from slaves and enslaved people myself, and I know that 12 Years a Slave meant so much, incalculable amounts. And now with Small Acts, you have 5 more stories of Black experience. I'm just genuinely very curious, because I live in Britain, but I'm born in the US, and I'm always curious in how Black experiences are very different. And obviously there is no one Black experience, or even 2 or 3, there's millions. But I am very interested in how you navigated your own identity, African-Americanness, British Blackness, and so on when making stories like 12 Years a Slave and Widows, and then also Small Acts, because it can be hard for anyone to sort of translate your own experience to a different community, and I'm just very curious to hear how you felt about that.
Well, most of my family are American. They live in America, most of them. If it's not New York, if it's not Florida. And also, so therefore, I've been since I was 7 years old, since the blackout and since Elvis died, I've been in New York. So it was never alien to me in that way. So the diaspora is where I come from. If it's London or New York or Grenada or the West Indies, where my parents are from, that's never been an issue. So that's it. I'm complex. We're complex. We're complicated. That boat that brought my ancestors to Grenada, my aunt and uncle went north to New Orleans. So that's it. And like I said, majority of my family are from the States. So I've been going in since I was 7 years old. It's not. There's no real kind of I mean, I'm not American, but yes, most of my family are. So it's a case of understanding and empathizing, and you know, that's it really. There's not been any kind of issue. Yeah.
To elaborate a little, we saw John Boyega very active in the Black Lives Matter protest. I'm not going to ask you what you think of that, but what I'm going to ask you is, is do you feel that there will be an artistic reaction to the movement?
I think there is already. I think it's starting already. It started before. It started before then. You know, I think that's what's been going on for a number of years. Yeah, for sure.
We got a lady in the middle of the room.
Thank you so much for all the information you shared with us. I have a question. What advice would you give to a woman who is almost your age when you enter the industry, who is entering the industry? Because it's so many like hints, like you're everyone starts this career like in 20, you're almost 40, what do you think you're doing? They're not saying this direct way, but they do say something. So can you give some advice in this case, like if you have any thoughts? Thank you so much.
Make good films. I mean, that's it. I mean, yeah.
Right here, the gentleman with the denim jacket. Oh, sorry.
Hello, thank you very much for being here. I'm a huge fan of your work. I just wanted to say that. Thank you very much. It changed my life. And I wanted to know, we talked about this scene, the hanging scene in 12 Years a Slave. I wanted to know, how do you build a scene like this in terms of time? Because your cinema is very, there's very long takes. How do you keep that intensity while having scenes that are so long?
Well, I wanted to, you know, again, I wanted it to sort of symbolize in some ways all lynchings, really, all lynchings. Listen, I wouldn't be doing my job as a descendant of slaves if I wasn't taking it absolutely seriously and making it as best as I could. So that scene had to be, I wanted to put it in people's faces. I didn't want to sort of, you know, cut or turn away. No. This was one of those moments, as I said before, where I wanted the people to deal with it. And also deal with not just the physical element of that moment, but the sort of mental element, the psychological moment of that. Because after, you know, Solomon is hung, people come out of their cabins and shelters, houses, and get on with work. So you're seeing the mental torture as well as the physical at one time, when people are actually going back and doing the work, going back and forth. And then you see the sharecropper, you know, going back and forth and basically making sure that no one interferes with this situation. So for me, it was building. How do you build it? So how do you sort of get to that moment? How and hold it, and hold it, and hold it beyond boredom. And then it starts again, and then you cut. That's it. And you can only do that in cinema. You can only do that in cinema. There's no other place you can do that.
I just want to elaborate on that. I mean, a very practical question. You are a master of long shot. I mean, you do that very well. What is the longest shot you had in one of your movies? Do you know that?
Hunger, isn't it?
The one with the priest?
Well, I think so. I don't count. I mean, look,
Well,
it's not about length. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in length. It's what it can. It's precisely what it can do. You know, it's not about that. It's just not about, oh, hold it for this amount of time or this. No, I never thought about it ever in my life until people, oh, you do long. Oh, really? It's my language. It's there to be used. You know, and it can be used in cinema. So, you know, it's about how you use it and how you know, and sometimes it's not used. Sometimes it's all about, you know, it's a close-up, medium shot, you know, a wide shot. You know, it's part of the language. That's all. And I think if the testament is that it's done, people talk about it because it's powerful. That's it. Because otherwise you wouldn't be talking about it. So I'll accept that. But it's not about having anything in one's. It's not about doing it to do it. It's to do it because it's necessary. It's necessary. That's all. It's like a medium shot or close up.
You're not going for the Guinness Books of Record.
No, at all. Again, I think, when you're in that conversation with, when I was thinking about that, and it was the first one I ever made, Hunger, with Michael and the priest, Father Phil and Bobby Sands. For me, it was Connor's McEnroe Wimbledon final. Two Irishmen wanting the same thing, but wanting it differently. Bobby being McEnroe, he's a serve volleyer. He wants to end the game early. And the priest being Connors, he's a baseliner. He basically is looking for the backhand down the line, or the forehand down the line. He's basically biding his time. The priest is playing the long game, and Bobby's playing the short game. Two Irishmen wanting the same thing. We talk about liberty. That's what it was about.
We got a question first row, and then we'll come back to you afterward.
Thank you again for holding this conversation with everyone. I'm a documentary filmmaker who's transitioning into fiction at the moment, and I was curious for you as a video artist and as a visual artist before, what was the process of deciding that Hunger would be your first film, narrative film?
The subject demanded it. I thought the subject demanded it to be narrative. That was it. Because for me, it's all about the idea. The idea tells me what it needs or wants to be. So it's not about me putting a stencil on the situation. It's about it telling me what it wants to be. And the narrative, that's what that particular subject was telling me it wanted it to be. It needed to be a feature film. So then I thought, okay, let's get this going on. Let's try and make this into a feature film, and that was it. But it's all about the idea and what if you have a documentary idea. If you have an idea, what is the best place for that idea? Is it a documentary or is it narrative? I don't know. So it will tell you. It will inform you after you look at it and research it and think about it after a while.
In the last row over there, here, I think it was you, sir.
Merci. Je peux parler en français.
I'm going to put my question in French. Good afternoon.
Je voulais vous demander entre le moment où préparez le film et le moment du
when you prepare a film and then when you shoot a film, how much improvisation is there in terms of the directing and in terms of the setting? And if you want an unknown French actor, here you have one.
Never know. Yeah. Sorry?
Oh, sorry. The question is about the part of how much improv is there between the preparation and the film and the shooting of the film? How much part of improv is there in it?
Well, scripts, I think, for me, are there as a guide. It's a very bloody good guide. It's got to be a great guide. So I don't leave anything to chance. I think you need a good script. So it's not, I'll improvise this scene or I'll leave it for later. No, you need a very good script. Then you could play. So therefore, it's a safety net for me, a script. Because at a certain point, an actor I could see something. I could hear something. Okay, let's go along there. And things happen. And a lot of times things happen on set. Because in rehearsal, you read the script and something else comes out in that rehearsal. So you rewrite the script. Or you're in the moment and something happens. But it's often magic. And I'm not sort of saying, no, now improvise. No. It has to happen organically. There's no rules for me. But it has to happen for a reason. It can't be to improvise. Otherwise, just stick to the bloody script, please. So often something happens which leads to that moment. And it's often something which is which is basically unknown. That's happened to me a few times, and it's just beautiful. And it's like, wow, okay, cut.
Did that happen a lot on Lover's work?
Yeah, that was a lot of it because, that was beautiful because all of that stuff is going to improvise just because how could it not be? it's real. All that stuff, people dancing, people interacting. You know, a lot of the time, what was happening in those moments where people were playing their mothers, they were playing their fathers for the first time. You had these young black actors playing people who they know or saying things which they've heard. They were playing themselves, similar to, say, Scorsese with Italian-American actors. They're doing things that he can never write, he can never think of, because they're being totally themselves in the moment. So that's always beautiful. That's always exciting to see.
Do you know right away when it's in? I mean, do you see that on set when it's happening? Do you know?
Oh yeah, you see it. No, and again, it's magic. It happens. It just happens. You know, there's moments where it sort of appears, and it's like, we got that. You know, the camera's running, we got it. Things like that. It's magic. I mean, like, for example, another example is, for example, you know, an amazing example is when Michael Fassbender in Shame, for example, is doing the threesome, whatever, and he's having sex or whatever. And there was a moment just before he comes where he looks right into the camera, and you know, and then of course he sort of he comes, and then he just looks at it, and he falls, and I mean, who knew? Who knew when we were shooting that? Who knew? It was so amazing, because it was like he's just looking at you, looking at him looking at himself, and it's like, you know, it's so wonderfully uncomfortable at the same time. It's so true. Because you know, it's like, again, you know, with sex is a very weird thing, you know, similar to what gentleman was saying about, you know, the morality within that, or non-morality. You know, what makes you feel good, and what's not necessarily seen as sort of ethical or whatever. And then Michael just looked straight into the camera, and it was just, and then wow, there was a moment, Jekyll and Hyde. It was absolutely extraordinary. Yeah.
We got a question right here. The lady behind you.
Hello. I just came in a good moment because I wanted to talk about shame. And it's true, we wanted all see that and sex on the movies. But I think this is the most deep sex film I saw ever. And I wanted you to tell us how was the process about the producing this film and the distribution, and what you find as a problem to make this movie, because it's really maybe harder to talk about these themes. And how was the process doing this movie?
Well, very quickly, I wanted to make it in the UK. I couldn't at that point because we had a situation with News Corporation and people bugging people. So when we started asking questions to people who maybe had some kind of idea about what was going on, speaking to actual sex addicts, there was a bit of suspicion because they thought we were the press trying to get a story or whatever. At the same time, this was the same time as there was, I think it was the golfer. Tiger Woods story came up at that point, so people didn't really want to talk to us. So myself and Abby Morgan, the co-writer, we went to New York and we spoke to. Because I thought, okay, let's go to a place, you know, the city that never sleeps. Let's go to New York to find out what's going on there. Because I actually wanted to make it in London. But I went to New York. We spoke to sex addict specialists and talked to them about the complications of it all. And it was almost like when myself and Abby, we did a few meetings with them. And I remember one day we left their office. It was like as if we walked into the Matrix. It's like, my goodness, how we saw the world differently because all the information we got and speaking to people who were sex addicts. So that was the start of it. That was the start of the research and how we got into it. And it was, I don't know, one thing led to another. It was through the research came the story and how we sort of developed it from there. And I think it's a difficult film. It's a very odd film because it's all about the things which it's a very odd film. It's a very difficult film. It's still it's the one I get asked the most about. I'll be honest.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're not afraid of difficult things. I mean, you're not afraid of showing violence, not afraid of showing sad stuff.
Well,
in your own way.
The only reason we're here is because of violence. I mean, let's not play ourselves. It's called history. You know. Well, there you go.
Okay. Gentleman in the second row.
Hi, Mr. Mcqueen. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing all the information. I love what you said about making art, not content. And my question for you is a little bit about where that meets, because you also talked about movies making money and the difference between films and movies and needing to be successful in this business. So from a creative standpoint, as an actor, the entire time that I've trained and worked, it's always been about the work. And I come from a theater background going to movies. And so it's always been the work, the work, the work. And for the first time in my career this last year, I had a conversation about marketability. And I made it to the final round of a casting, and I didn't get the part, and the producers told me, you did fantastic, but you're not well known enough. And so when it comes to casting and marketability, I think a lot of times as creative, we're so focused on the work, but no one at school and no acting teacher I ever had, said you have to have so many followers. How do we navigate that as creatives with people wanting to market their films when we're more focused on the work?
Wow, goodness gracious. I so much believe in work. I so much believe in film, art, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I would say to you, do not get complex. Don't get involved in that. Do not, because that's something, you just get involved with the work. I just feel if you see something which is amazing, made for $10,000 or whatever, $15 million, whatever, it has something. I know all the stuff about money and all this. I mean, it really is a pain in the ass, to be honest. And it's successful. What is successful? How much money, how many pairs of shoes can you wear? You know what I mean? I know people got to pay bills and pay their rent and stuff, and that's very important. But I would just say, interestingly enough, I just bumped into Bill Murray, as you do. And I was saying to him, my goodness, you've been going a long time. I mean, some of your peers have come and gone, but you're still here, And he said to me, you know why? Because you can't underestimate the power of no. And I'm not saying as you as a person who's coming along, or other people here coming along into the world to say, no, you need to work, you need to get, to pay your bills, you need to do things, you need to make work, but focus on the work. Because as I said to you before, I've tried to fail. And I've been very fortunate that it didn't happen because all the subjects I made films about weren't particularly popular, like I said, or seemed deemed popular at the time. So focus on the work, because when you're, as an actor, you're doing something and it's like that. That's what you want. That's what you want, not doing, not getting $100,000 to sort of come in and do a little part bit and sort of put an ashtray down and walk out or whatever it is, or, be a bit part player. You want to feel this thing. So I would say go do theatre, feel it. You're an artist. I think that's what I'm after. I only want to talk to artists. We have no control over that. But what we do have control over is hopefully some idea of how we want to be or how we want to sort of create. That's why, that's what I want to talk about. Yeah.
We have a lady over there.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria. I'm an actress beginner, and my question probably will be a little bit stupid, but I think your answer will be very useful for other actors beginners. What would you recommend for actors beginners who dream to play in valuable films, in films like yours? I don't know, in which door should we knock on to be able to have a chance at least to work with you, and where are you looking for actors?
Wow. Into a casting job.
I don't know. Good question. I don't really know. I don't know. I think just keep on working. I know it sounds corny me saying that, but again, I think if you're doing good work, someone will see you, someone will recognize you, someone will spot you. Put yourself into possibilities where you could do good work. Theatre. Theatre. Someone will spot you, hopefully.
We got a gentleman on the same side over there. This gentleman, right Here? Yeah, you. Oh, this lady, sorry, I can see. La demoiselle, juste là. Voilà, merci.
First of all, thank you very much for being there and answering to our questions. I wanted to ask you because there were some polemics about the fact that Martin Scorsese only his movie was only available on Netflix. I'm talking about The Irishman, and some of your movies are also available on Netflix. Would you be ready to collaborate with Netflix? I'm speaking about financial issues, and not to have maybe your movies projected all over the world in cinemas.
It's not Netflix, it's Amazon and Salto in France.
Yeah, yeah. So I think with The Lovers Rock was a collaboration with the, BBC and Amazon. As I said before, prefer cinema. I think it's a negotiation, because how you can actually negotiate that as a filmmaker. I mean, I always prefer the big screen. That's not an if, but a maybe. I made small acts for streaming services, but also in France, of course. We just talked about the distribution here in cinemas. So again, it's negotiation. Maybe there will be that day when I have to go to a streamer and say, look, I need to make this. I need your help. But hopefully that day never comes.
We got a question on the other side, first row over there. If you don't mind standing.
Yes. Hey, Steve. So I'm from the U.S., and I was 18 when Shame came out. And I remember there was the NC-17 controversy. So my question is, when you face friction with releasing your film the way that your initial vision was, are there lessons that you've learned throughout your entire filmography, whether it be in preserving what your initial vision was through the final cut, and then also with the marketing strategy and making sure that it's kind of sold to audiences the way that you want it to be sold without kind of making it seem like you're, going against what the marketing strategy kind of has in mind? Like, how do you, I guess, stop being such a yes man and stand up for yourself? Because Shame was your second movie, and for you to do that before 12 Years a Slave, kind of like, change things.
No, I understood. I just made the movie I wanted to make, and I wanted to release it the way I wanted to release it, and it wasn't going to be cut in any way, and that was it. End of story. And that was it. I imagine people wouldn't want it to be an NC-17 film. I didn't even know what it was. I thought it was sort of some kind of World Wrestling Federation thing. I am N7. What? Who? It's a rock band? I don't know. So I didn't know what that was. That was an American thing, and. Apparently, it became the second highest grossing NC-17 film after Showgirls. Go figure. Look, your vision's your vision, and the marketing will have to sort of, adapt itself to it. And as an artist, you want to grow. If you start meddling with your stuff, you'll never get to that point where you could. Are walking on 2 feet. If people get involved in editing, re-editing, or manipulating your vision, not to say that sometimes actually a suggestion is a good suggestion. Don't get me wrong, but if they're going so far, my goodness, it'd be like a Frankenstein of a film. What will it look like in the end? So you have to be very careful about that. And that was 2011. People are still talking about that picture. So that's it. So that's the proof is in the pudding. Yeah.
The last question is at the end of the room of the other lady.
Hi, thank you for being here with us. I just want to know if the health crisis will have an impact on your choices. I mean, do you use it like a source of inspiration, like with their experience we get it from? I don't know if you understand what I mean.
Repeat that, please? I apologize. The health crisis, did you say?
Yes, with the crisis, the coronavirus will inspire you with the experiences we get it from, like a source of inspiration in your movies.
I think I understood that would the current health crisis have some kind of inspiration on future films? Is that what you said? No, it's a good question. I mean, because interestingly enough, you got to think now, anyone making a picture now, it's a kind of a big road bump, isn't it? the COVID-19 huge road bump. I mean, therefore, if you make a film where there isn't a pandemic, when are you setting your film? You know what I mean? And are you setting it in the past or the hopefully near future? You know, because it definitely isn't about now. So that's an interesting question as far as people coming up with movies, narratives, contemporary narratives. That's an interesting question. As far as I am concerned, I'm going back to the past. So hopefully by the time I come out of my next movie, which is in the past, this will be over and I can just not put COVID into the picture. Yeah, good question. Thank you.
So no mask in your next movie?
No, it's 60 years ago. So hopefully no mask. No.
All right. The last question to the gentleman on the second row.
I'm not going to say what it is, so don't ask that question.
I didn't.
Hi, Steve. Thank you very much for sharing your time. I'm sure in this space there are many who are motivated by you. I want to ask you, like, what motivates you? Like, who are your favorite directors? What keeps you pushing? Like, yeah.
Okay, no, good question. Motivation.
I guess that's basic thing for every artist.
Well, the biggest passion in my life in cinema, when I first went to cinema, the thing that really knocked me between the eyes was Jean Vigo, Zero de Conduite. When I saw that picture, it really did. It just hit me like crazy. I just thought it was it was about a revolution in a boarding school. It was about freedom. It was about possibilities. It was about fantasy. It was about magic. I just thought, this is just, I mean, that's the thing that just did my head in. And the fact that it was, he was an anarchist. It was kind of like, oh, okay, great. Then you can actually use film as a real tool. It can actually be, not decoration or whatever. Actually, can actually use it as a mallet, as paving the way for something, of ideas, of possibilities, real possibilities within our everyday. So that was a huge inspiration to me. And what inspires me now is the fact that, it's all or nothing. Because when I made Hunger was the same kind of thing. I thought, you know what? This could be, and I think this is a thing for everyone here, filmmakers and actors and actresses and whoever, producers, cinematographers. I just thought that Hunger would be possibly the first film I make and the last film I make. So I thought to myself, you know what? I want to go out with two guns blazing. So regardless of what happens, I'll have no regrets, What you don't want to have is a situation where you say you coulda, shoulda, woulda. You want to have a situation where I tried and I did it, and hey, it is what it is. That's where you want to be. So, again, only compromise if it's helpful to you and what you're doing. Don't compromise because it's helpful for someone else. That's not the way to go. So it was all about going out with two guns blazing, basically.
I have just one last thing to say. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Steve Mcqueen.
Thank you.